still spinning a little bit, but we'll go ahead and start.
All right, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is our call to order.
Roll call. Rob Keller.
Here.
Sue Wilson. Here. Don Kramer. Bill Metzger.
Here.
Matt Rankin.
Here.
Brian Worley. Here. We have a quorum, missing Tim, so.
Next is our good news with Superintendent Haynes.
We're going to have,
No, we have, the new one is Tim, we're into Teamworks International right now.
All right. We'll just flip flop those.
Just to keep, just keep moving, yeah.
Okay.
all right, Ray, you are good.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you, and especially thank you for allowing me to do this virtually, and appreciate it. I also understand that Indianola has ordered up a nice weather event for our return trip tomorrow and Thursday, so we're looking forward to coming down to see some of the white stuff in Iowa as well. So I'm going to share my screen, and if you could just let me know if you are seeing that okay.
Yes.
Good. All right, perfect. Well, today we wanted to give the board and public a brief overview of our strategic planning process that we have embarked upon since the first of the year. And we have a couple of these updates planned to the board and public just to keep folks aware of what we are doing. And as a reminder of our process, this is a unique process. It's called Classroom to Boardroom. It's everything about traditional strategic plan, but done kind of in an inverted manner. So we start with the classroom and build upon that, and our final steps are with the school board at the end of our process. As a brief overview, if you recall, we have three key strands that we do our work in. One is assessing our current reality, and we have accomplished all three of those sessions: the story wall, environmental scan, and the building strengths and needs. And I'll share a little bit more about those and some outcomes that come out of those processes in a few moments. Describing our vision, we are in the middle of desired daily experiences. That's where we ask students, family and staff, what their desired experience is when they come to school. And so we have developed some draft statements, and I'll talk a bit more about where we're at with that. Actually, tomorrow we will begin working on refining those desired daily experiences and developing drafts of theory of action and a vision card. The theory of action describes the beliefs, the behaviors, and the actions of the adults in the system to allow the plan to be implemented. And the vision card is our tool to measure progress for implementation. And then we'll be moving into, after that strand phase, into setting the strategic plan, which has three components. It's the operational plan, which is a tool for management to utilize for describing the work that will be done as a part of the plan. School and department improvement plans will be how we bring vertical alignment of all the work in the schools and departments in alignment with the district plan. And then we'll be working on the 3-year board agenda towards the end of the process, and that will map the work of the school board over the next 3 years to pave a way for this process to be implemented. So first update on the story wall. We conducted the story wall, which tells the life cycle of the school district as far back as we have knowledge from who's in the room. And so we had asked superintendent to identify some folks that have been in the district as long as possible. I think we went back to 1999. and we mapped out a story of the school district. And then in phase 2, we took that information and looked at an analysis of what that story wall meant. You can see an image of snapshot of one part of the report on the right-hand side of the screen, identifying the major events and actions of the school district. And then in the 2 right-hand columns are the components that actually move forward in the planning process. And so we asked the team to take a look at key influential events that occurred, identify those, identify influential behaviors, and then spend some time on looking at the characteristics of both the successes and the challenges. One of the things that we want to do as we move forward in planning is we want to do our best to set the organization up for success. So we look at those characteristics and we want to avoid obviously challenges. And then lastly, given that time frame, and this one that you see on the screen is 1999 to 2008, what life cycle was the school district in at the time of that event? And in this category, it was in adolescence. So very much growing, and a lot of new things were happening during this time frame. And I believe the superintendent has shared with the board of all the details of the story wall. And so we'll move on and talk just a few moments about environmental scan. So if the story wall looks backward, the environmental scan is designed to look at the present day. And we do that in kind of a SWOT analysis, but a little bit different framing. And what we look at is what is established in the school district, what are those things that are implemented with fidelity, they're well established, what are things that were once well established but they might now be ebbing, maybe losing a little energy. They're still in the organization, but they are not as much energy. What are things that are on the edge, both cutting edge to education, but all maybe just new to Indianola Community School District? And then emerging are those things that you're currently working on. So what are you studying, what are you planning to look at, and what are you implementing? And then we did an analysis of those 4 areas and identified key trends and influences driving that work. For the edge and emerging category, you can see green, and I believe you have a handout as well. Those are the key trends and influences that are impacting what's on the edge for the district and maybe areas that you're working on. And social, emotional, behavioral, mental health areas are very popular in school districts, especially coming out of the pandemic. So you'll see a lot of areas in the plans around that topic. But you see flexible learning opportunities, competitive learning opportunities, some new activities. Those are all driving what the district considers to be on the edge and or they are currently studying and implementing. On the established and ebbing side, categories such as technology, staff collaboration, socioeconomic status, staff consistency and longevity, and then a focus on the whole child with the trends and influences that came out of the environmental scan. So again, we use that as a way to frame our planning as we move forward from that component. And I should have asked the board, do you want to ask questions as we go, or do you want to save them till the end?
We'll just keep going here.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So that's the desired daily experiences. We utilize focus groups to generate draft statements, and we had a number of students, families, and staff participate in that process. We did both in person and had a couple that were virtual. And we captured this data between the January 16th and the 25th of this year. We had 2 groups at the middle and high school, of students, about 71 students that were picked as a representation of the demographic of each school. So we'd ask the administration of the school to identify students that came from all achievement levels, student involvement, race, ethnicity, and gender. So we had a good profile of the school. And again, that was at both the middle and the high school. For the family groups, we had a couple of family groups, but we had a difficult time getting a lot of numbers. I don't know if it's the timing of our events. We did have great conversation, but we only had 11 parents that came to the table. And if we were going to do planning from that data, I would have suggested that we utilize another round of that because it's a small data set. But as you'll see in a moment, use the focus groups to generate statements that actually go out in a survey. And so we do have a rich data set that came back from the survey. But we did talk to early childhood, elementary, and secondary aged students, their families. And then finally for the staff, it says 5 groups, that's an error, I apologize. We had a couple of staff groups that we met with, 58 in total that came together. And again, they represented both licensed and non-licensed staff. After the planning team received that data, they generated draft statements that were generated a couple of weeks ago. And then we ran a survey from February 3rd through the 10th. And in the survey, we sent out the survey to all families, all staff, 612 students participated, and we actually had a very focused effort at the elementary school. So we have elementary voice in these survey results as well, which was a really nice add for the data set. And in terms of our responses, we had about 1,500 student responses, a little over 700 families, and about 270 staff responses. So the survey data gave us a lot of rich feedback on the draft statements that the planning team had compiled. We will be reviewing this tomorrow in detail. As I look through the survey data, it would appear that the planning team did a pretty good job of generating draft statements from the focus group data. And because by and large, most people were in agreement with the statement. But there are numerous pages of open-ended data because we did ask the question, what is missing from these draft statements? So the planning team will have to take a look at that information tomorrow and add to the draft desired daily experience statements. And as the board knows, we had a session with them, with you, a few weeks ago where we talked about kind of the theory that underpins all of the strategic planning framework in our education leadership system that focuses on excellence in governance, excellence in management, and consultation, and how these 3 authorities work together, not only in terms of running the school district, but also in our strategic planning process. And the board members participated in the process, in an activity where we asked them to identify current strengths, current opportunities, and as well as some initial desired outcomes for students, families, and staff as we work through our plan. And finally, we have a bit of a process update. So we did meet with the buildings and departments. We invited more people to the table than the planning team. And we did that on January 31st. That report will be coming. And they identified strengths and needs from their departments and strengths and needs from each of the schools. As well as the schools going through a 9-question assessment, generating data around how they are performing, where is achievement high, where is engagement high, and so we can learn about a little bit about each of the schools as well. And then we have a lot of work to do tomorrow. We're going to have a final draft of the desired daily experience. We will revisit it one final time on March 22nd. As I mentioned, we'll be developing that classroom theory of action. Again, we'll review a final version on March 22nd. And then we will generate a draft vision card tomorrow. I am not sure that we will be able to get to the operational plan tomorrow. We'll see how things progress. If not, we will be doing the operational plan on March 22nd. That's where we start to map out the work that the district will be doing to deliver on the desired daily experiences as part of the process. I'll be back with you as a school board in April, where we will be looking at your mission, vision, and core value. We call that our strategic roadmap. And we'll be looking at that in the context of all of the work the planning team has been compiling, including the operational plan for moving forward. And then we have the board action on the roadmap in late April. And then finally, we are planning to bring school and department folks together in June and have them work on their school and department improvement plans. Again, this is really where we bring in that alignment of the work at the schools and departments all under the umbrella of the district operational plan. And then we have a couple activities left with the board. We will work on your governance plan in June and visit your school board structures in July. And that will complete at least the development of our plan. And then there's just the minor task of implementing the plan moving forward in the 23-24 school year. I joke it's not minor, it's actually, it will be a great direction for the school district. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions board members might have about the process or what we've done so far or where we are going.
Any questions for Ray? Looks like we don't have any, Ray. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank
Yep.
you.
All right. All right, we'll return to the good news then.
Sure. You'll notice in your board packet that there's quite a bit of good news this month, so I'm just going to do some quick highlights and people have the opportunity to scroll through it or review it on their own. We did have a number of students that were involved in the Dorian Vocal Festival at Luther College on January 8th and 9th. We did have one student that was selected as a finalist, Jacob Butts. He was one of five students, only one of five students out of nearly 300 that auditioned that received that opportunity. Mr. Rogers, personal finance teacher, had a situation where they had the WISE certified through the WISE testing program, and that means that 91% or over 80% of the students have a financial literacy certificate, and you receive an A rating. Our Blue Star School, of the students at Indianola High School, 91% of them receive that honor. So that is pretty exciting to see when we talk about financial literacy, and that's one of the areas that people focus on that they want students to achieve once they graduate from high school.
Is that an elective? Or do all our students take that?
It's an elective.
It's an
Elective.
elective.
Middle school staff had a professional learning day with the author and guest speaker. They worked on assessment, standard-based grading, along with behavior support for students. Excuse me, Tisha Carter-Smith, Associate Director of Multicultural and International Affairs, worked with our students and our staff on having art displayed at their inaugural George Washington Carver Day at Simpson College on February 1st, 2023. You can see that we had 3 students, and their artwork was chosen to be a part of that display. At the annual Iowa Baseball Coach Association, both John Fitzpatrick and Josh Breitboth received recognition. John is the head coach of the year for the South Central Division, and Josh for the Central District Assistant Coach of the Year. Congratulations to them. Middle school PE, peer PE class made Valentines for our veterans. They were able to share them at the Veterans Hospital. And again, it's one of those pieces that we do have a lot of great students, and that's just another way that they're showing how they can help support individuals that have supported us in the community throughout the time. I don't believe this was last weekend, some of these might be old, but since the last board meeting, 8 students represented Indianola High School at the Drake University Honors Festival. They participated in 2 days of rehearsals and sectionals with a concert. Great opportunity for our students to showcase their musical talent, and it looked like it was a great concert had by all. FFA members had the opportunity to travel to the Capitol at the end of January and work with Governor Reynolds and Secretary Nang about agriculture and how important it is, and how important agriculture education and FFA is important to our community and our state. Students were able to see what it means to lobby as well. On February 2nd, Indianola Middle School had their 8th grade fair. Students were able to choose 4 presentations based on what their interests were. And I can tell you this, that it was very well attended and the students had a great time. And I know that there was a lot of positive feedback from families as well, that they really enjoyed the presentations that students had the opportunity to go to. So that's another one of those, I guess, career links that we keep talking about, having students pick it up earlier than later. Congratulations to some of our 6th grade students who were chosen to be a part of the Youth Art Month show. That will all their artwork will take place at Jordan Creek Town Center now through, I believe it's March 25th, where there is a reception. The artists will receive the award for their achievements, and they are, hopefully I don't butcher the names, Carson Vetter, Lilia Richardson, Sophia Houston, so congratulations to them. Another photo of a middle school food drive that happened earlier this year. And we had an Emerson Teddy Bear performance. Students had an amazing time being able to make connection with the older orchestra students, engage with someone in their family that might have been involved in orchestra, and just again, promote different opportunities for students as they get older to be involved in activities within our school system. And you'll see another Whittier Teddy Bear Orchestra opportunity as well. Emerson 5th graders had the opportunity to learn a little bit about the Renaissance period through artists. They studied with our language arts and reading during art class. They were given a choice to do different objects and do different things that represent things from the Renaissance period. So the students were able to make a great connection to what they already learned and brought it to life through the work of art. Indianola High School upperclassmen do a really good job of mentoring our freshmen through the MVP program. It's one of those connections where the upperclassmen work with the underclassmen to help out with different things throughout the course of their freshman year. And last but not least, Nora Lewerke has been accepted to the Rotary Youth Exchange Program for the 23-24 school year. She'll be spending a year studying in France. Any questions?
Any board member reports? Okay, we'll move on to delegations, petitions, and communications.
So Jean Arch, stand up there, the microphone should be on. So.
So you know you have a maximum of 5.
Thank you for listening to me tonight. I just wanted to, actually first I wanted to give a little feedback on that presentation that was just given. I never heard about any parent feedback sessions, so maybe the communication could be better there. But I did want to mostly speak about the school board proposed changes to the reconsideration of curriculum language. First of all, the fact that it's falling tonight during conferences makes it difficult for teachers, students, and parents to give their feedback on it, so just be aware of that. So these proposed changes blatantly contradict our district mission statement to provide for all students, establish a sense of pride in our community, and seek to build partnerships between students, teachers, parents, and community. One such proposed change that contradicts our district goals is the complete removal of student voices in the book reconsideration process entirely. The proposed changes strike students from the table entirely. What pride can our students have if the already limited opportunities they have to voice concerns and steer the direction of our district is moving? That does not communicate to our students that we value them, that we value their perspectives, and that we value their support in the process of their learning. Having spoken with Jonathan Bethards, who had previously been on a reconsideration committee, the student voices were vital in making a decision. Their voices offer great insight into how students perceive the curriculum they're reading. Stripping our students of this opportunity indicates ICSD pays only lip service to students' needs and the willingness to work together to solve problems. Such a policy change communicates to students that they are in fact not in control of their learning, but that the adults are. Such a change doesn't prepare students for their future, it limits them. Furthermore, the proposed policy change vaguely sets the size and makeup of a reconsideration committee, stating the reconsideration committee may include up to 7 members of the following groups, as approved by the school board. This interpretive language doesn't prevent the stacking of the deck against staff, against community members, or vice versa. This language, in fact, allows for district administration to create a reconsideration committee made up of whomever they choose, whether that be only community input or district input. A community doesn't have to be made up of 7, or a committee doesn't have to be made up of 7 members at all. This opportunity does, this opportunity does not fulfill a mission statement of our district purports to uphold. Students, staff, and community are willing to work together to address concerns and correct problems. Another thing about the language is that it mentions not not favoring one voice over another because of social pressure or something like that. This language is making it very easy to favor particularly the complainant's voice over the community members who may disagree with the complainant, staff members, or students. And we must remember, above all, the point of this is to determine the educational value of the materials, not necessarily somebody's disagreement with the materials. So I hope you'll keep that in mind when considering the language of this, this reconsidered language. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Cory?
Hi. Before I start, I am a new grandma today. I was up in the wee hours taking care of grandkids, so these are my notes. I taught in Indianola. For those of you who don't know me, I taught in Indianola for over 20 years. And I was a reading support teacher. Loved my job. And I did have the privilege to serve on the reconsideration committee. So I feel like maybe I can offer some perspective that you haven't heard yet. I have to say I was really surprised to find out that there was a thought of taking students off of that committee. I found those students that were on the committee, first of all, as an educator and as a community member here, I felt such a great sense of pride when I heard those students talk, the insight that they could share. You know, when I read a book, I try to approach it from the eyes of a student, but I'm 61 years old. And so their input was so valuable. And the other voices on there, I just thought it was just such a great mix of people. The administrator, I had a chance to work with Annette once, and the other teachers, the librarian. I just left all of those meetings feeling so proud of what we have here. And it saddens me to think that there's just this push, for reasons that I don't completely understand, to change those voices. I mean, Indianola has a great community of parents, a great community of students, and a great community of professionals that are in their districts. And the push seems to be to keep silencing the professionals and raise up the voices of parents to a higher level. Parents obviously are important, but parents have the right to say yes or no to a whole bunch of things that their kids are doing. But I do want to go back to the students, and I know that that's part of the vote tonight. I hope that you will take a step back from what is disappointingly seeming to be some culture wars that keep getting pushed into schools, when what really, I know, I just feel strongly that most of you in this room are here not because of all the other noise, but you're here because of the students, and you're here to do what's best for them, and to let those students have a voice in the decisions that are made, and to have show off their critical thinking skills, and they really did show them off. Their ability to speak to a group of adults was just so impressive. I mean, it should be on the good news as far as I'm concerned, because we've got some great kids here. So I just feel like this is something that really isn't broken. I don't know why it's being asked to be fixed. It was a great process. If you are, want to have some more discussion about it, take time to have that discussion maybe before you vote on this. I don't know how long you've been considering it, but it's something that I think is important the student's voice is important to have in that setting, and I hope that you will not vote to take their voice away. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes,
I do have to leave because
Okay.
of grandkids.
congratulations.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for allowing me time. My name's Jess Lundquist. My husband is actually Quinn Whitaker, and he teaches at the high school, so Mr. Whitaker. So he's actually, since he couldn't be here tonight due to parent-teacher conferences, he gave me something to read, so I'm speaking for him. So I'm also here to voice my objections to the proposed changes to the request for reconsideration process. I'm going to repeat a couple things that have already been said. My sentiments are exactly the same, and so are Quinn's. But Quinn's words are, within the proposed changes, most alarming is the complete omission of students from the process. A note from Jess, this is coming from someone who spends his entire day with the students. He's very dedicated to them and is passionate about the work that he does. Our youth are the reason we invest so much monetarily, organizationally, emotionally in this school district. The belief they shouldn't have a role in what's deemed appropriate or accessible is myopic, naive, and infantilizing. Particularly at the secondary level, students are capable of encountering controversial ideas and determining what's suitable, accessible, and most importantly, relevant. Students know better than any adult in this community the social considerations of being a young person in this digital, interconnected world we now live in. To assume we know the ideas to which they've been exposed and which ones they haven't is presumptuous. The only way to ensure we have the student voice in the reconsideration process is to include them. And this proposal inexplicably decides to omit them. Additionally, the degree to which this proposal opts to omit nearly everyone, students, staff, and community members alike, is startling. The current system for review is one in which students, staff, and community members collectively read, analyze, and discuss a text with district administration before coming to a decision on the book's suitability for its school. It's an evaluative process offering all facets of the school system the opportunity to play an active role. In order to make a decision as pivotal and impactful as removing a text from a school, diverse perspectives must be considered. We need to ensure we've looked at the text from every possible angle, considering perspectives we ultimately, influenced by experiences and biases we all have, may have overlooked. The current reconsideration process ensures we've exhaustively reviewed the material, giving all levels a voice in the conversation. The proposal does the exact opposite. The language is extremely vague, stating, quote, "The reconsideration committee may include 7 members of the following groups as elected to the school board," end quote. What if it doesn't include 7 members, as Jean pointed out? There's no clear answer to that question. It seems to leave the door open for the book review process to become significantly smaller, where only a few voices are heard before determining a text suitability. This is an error in judgment. We have a current system that works effectively. There's no reason to alter it when the protocol in place has operated functionally, allowing everyone in the Indianola Community School District system the chance to have a role in the decision-making process. Before considering such a dramatic alteration to a functional, fair policy, public discourse is necessary. We need to hear from those objecting to it, explaining why the process, which has seemingly worked so effectively, is suddenly untenable to the point it needs to be completely redesigned. Some of the most seminal works of literature have found themselves on the banned book lists. To Kill a Mockingbird, Of Mice and Men, Brave New World, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and The Bluest Eye have been challenged for perceived objectionable content. Popular favorites like Harry Potter, Twilight, and even Captain Underpants, a favorite of Quinn's, have as well. I guess most of you have read at least one of the aforementioned and understand that while you may be able to find a section or two that sounds objectionable out of context, the text as a whole has something much more complex, nuanced, and profound to say. Books must be read, considered, reread, dissected, and debated. What one person considers inartful trash, another may consider deeply literary. In order to determine whether the text is the former or the latter, we must form a consensus among a broad array of diverse, insightful perspectives. Our current policy ensures we'll do this. The proposed policy suggests we will not. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Next is our consent agenda. We just need a motion.
There is one on your table for a contract, a small contract called Spare Time. That was added, right? It's for DECA as well, doing team building, something, it's a bowling alley. So that just means it is under that contract. The other contract that's big is Marlon Swartz is sitting here. He's our transportation director, and the large contract we talked about, I know, in facilities. And then it was vetted through our attorneys. Now it's 117 pages or whatever. So it's ready to go, but I just wanted to make sure if you have questions on that, Ron is here.
Any questions for Ron on that? We just need a motion for the consent agenda unless anybody has any questions on it. Motion made by Donna to approve, seconded by Sue. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is our district soft drink contract.
This was,
You just need a motion.
yeah, if you have any questions, it kind of is explanatory, self-explanatory. I don't know.
Get it up there to make the motion.
Motion to approve, 7-year contract for,
It's a 7-year versus a 5, that's new, but
you know, I did have one question, John. What does sponsorship mean on that line item? Is that to us or?
sponsorship, so when they do, oh, good question, I don't know the exact answer to that. But it's when that we are solely a Coca-Cola district.
I think Coke's been a great partner to our district. They've provided lots of free Coke and things over the years, and they've been a great partner, so I'm really for the contract for Coke.
Motion made by Donna to approve, seconded by Sue. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is the 2023-2024 district educational calendars, and one second.
We will have to do a public hearing, just a reminder, so.
On the
So-
calendars.
On the calendars.
I just want to make sure, and I haven't had a chance to read it, but that are we trying to stay away from Memorial Day weekend for graduation? Because I know it fell on it this year, and there's lots of rumbling about it, so what, like, how does that happen?
They have to have 175 days or so many hours, which equates to those days, for the seniors before they can, what am I gonna say, be relieved of, they can be relieved of 5 days, basically. So, because the way that the calendar falls with August 23rd, and the way that Christmas falls, and the way that spring break is, there's so many constraints that it mostly will fall on Memorial Day. Last year was kind of an anomaly compared to most other years we've been on Memorial Day for many years that I've been here. So they're talking about changing the calendar to making the 23rd not be the required date. I have not heard if that's made it through any of the houses.
That's on the Hill right now, like in legislation right now?
That's in legislation right now. And then if you would allow that, then there's some flexibility. If you bring your start date earlier, you can be done earlier, but it's.
Yeah, I guess, because in 2020, it was like June, so then it obviously didn't affect it then.
Right.
Okay, so yeah, I just don't remember the last 3 years of being on that date.
Unusually, it was short last year, unusually, because usually it has been Memorial Day weekend. This does, as we've looked at the different trainings besides, professional development is a whole different, are the days that we have already set in there, but the different trainings that need to be completed can get done within the contract time that they have, so. That was one of the things that you guys had asked previously.
So we'll go ahead and open for public hearing. Is there anybody here to speak for or against the proposed calendars for the 2023-2024 school district? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and then we just need a motion to approve those two calendars.
So motion.
Motion made by Mac to approve the 2023-2024 calendars.
Second.
Seconded by Tim. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is the district walk zone school boundaries, which, would you like, Jonah?
I'm a speaker, we have, Ron has done a lot of work to try and, and Denise Moss here and Ron Swartz have both done work towards trying to figure out the best way to allow our schools to be balanced, both by programs and by population. So in doing that, if you look, I don't know if you want to go to the map, right? Might be the easiest. That piece right there explains it in words. The picture in the next page kind of shows it that in the city, there are zones. Really, once you get outside, and again, that really kind of states it in the verbiage above, it's even part of the north part of the city, the south part of the city. It's transportation zones. So this would allow for balancing class sizes, and it would be the district's responsibility to be able to assign those students into in those areas. In the blue, the green, and the pink area, or the red, those are the areas that actually have a zone for, and it's within the walk area of the school district, yeah, so.
And the zones fall on a street, so both sides of the street would be on one zone.
If there is a street.
Street would divide the zones. So like, the west zone is Kenwood, so the green would be Laurel Lee Wilder, and the blue would be Whittier.
Oh, so you're talking about halfway down the street?
Yeah. Where the old zones, there was some on both sides of the street that went to different schools. We got rid of the jagged lines, we put it in with just the streets, so like if you go up to J Street, the west side would be Laurel Lee Wilder, the other side would be Whittier. We dropped it down. Basically, the north side would be if you take Orchard Street across. That would be your north zone. And then your south zone, anything south of 92 would be a transportation, because we don't want the kids walking across the highway. And then your 65, 69 would actually be the divider for Emerson and Whittier and Irving. And then you'd go across over to 14th down to Iowa, and then out to 19th and straight down to 92 would be your, we made it so that it's actually easier for even like the realtors and stuff, because it's just straight line now. It's not jagged edges or, and then outside of that area, it's basically just gonna be open, because we have the transportation set up now that once we get the kids to town and to either Emerson or Laura Zinga Wilder, we can get them to any school in town. Where before, everything was coming to the middle school, and then it was just kind of so this way, like I said, you'll be able to, with class sizes and everything, we'll be able to make it work, and it'd be a lot easier. And if Denise is here, she can kind of talk to, we got it written in the part that the kids that are in those schools now are gonna stay in those schools. We're not gonna upset the apple cart, but going forward, as these new families move in, everything outside of those 3 zones basically is open to put wherever they need to be.
And in these directions, the written instructions or directions will be included on what the public sees, what the public has access to.
Our goal is to put that out there tomorrow.
Okay.
As soon, if it's approved tonight, it's to get all this information out there tomorrow.
Okay, excellent. And then will there be a period of time between right now when it's voted upon and if it passes, to allow people that are maybe have an approved offer, but it hasn't closed, to make sure that those families who already think their kids are going to a certain school, that it's not changed for those families?
I guess we do need to set a date for that.
Okay, okay.
I think it's for 23, 24.
23, yeah.
Yeah. So
This would be when I
school year.
start routing people in the end of June. I'd like to, like,
Okay, so this doesn't take effect until
Next school
July
year.
1st?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question or just a clarification that somebody asked me. We had talked about if you have kids in a school already grandfathering kids in, would that apply as well if, say, you had 2 kids that went through a particular elementary school, but they're both gone from there, but there's still a young child who hasn't entered school yet? Would they be grandfathered into the same school building that their siblings went to?
Not necessarily. If they do not have a sibling in that school, they would take into consideration the new boundaries.
But if the sibling's already there, then they would continue.
Correct.
keep the families together.
Correct. Siblings would be grandfathered in
So-
if they have a sibling attending that school district in the same school year.
Yeah, so that might be
School.
very important that we communicate, because I imagine there's quite a few families in that position where a child is in 6th grade now and one is in preschool, and they're assuming that their youngest child's gonna go to the school their others have gone to. So,
Yeah, a follow-on to that is, so if that student, let's take an elementary, for example. If you have a older sibling that's in that elementary, you have a younger sibling that's coming to that elementary, or you would assume that they would be. But next year, the older sibling goes to the middle school. Are they still entitled to go to that same? Okay, and that's what I thought as we had talked through it. And this whole messaging thing was something that we talked about in facilities, because it's really, really important. I think you're gonna field quite a few questions. But they have done a lot of work, and as we talked through, making sure that we take care of people that are already thinking along those same lines as the person who reached out to you, Ben, and, you know, even myself as I think about where I'm at. They've taken all those thoughts into consideration, and they've got a good product. And it's really designed to make sure that as we move forward, we're set up to not overload one particular school over another.
So in that situation that Ben referenced, would that, if there was an opening, would that family be then allowed to allow their student to go there?
The district assigns elementary schools. It would be taken into consideration, but not a guarantee.
Okay.
I realize it may be a lot of work, but would there be a mechanism or a way to like a preference over like a third child versus a new family. I realize based how it's drawn up, they're essentially in the same boat, but one has been with us for many, many years and they just happen to be the last kid going through, and another family who might move in. I mean, is there a way to do that without creating a lot of work for you guys to where we can try our best to accommodate for families that have gone to an elementary school the entire time? I mean, you have 5 or 6 kids, you know, is there a way that we can try to help that as much as possible, I guess?
It can be taken into consideration.
Okay.
So the people in the yellow zone, they have the ability to choose wherever? What does that mean?
They'll be assigned to a school based on program needs and class sizes.
The big picture for me on this is, if we get it down to those 3 zones and the rest is all open, you shouldn't have to go through this process again. And, you know, will the first couple of years be a little painful for some, probably, or maybe, I don't even know. But the further you go along, you just don't have to go through it every 5 years, basically.
All students that are currently in an elementary school will be able to continue that school. Any other questions for Mr. Schwartz on this?
I appreciate you looking at long-term, big picture. That's important.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, and as long as we communicate this really well to the public, I'm okay with it. If we don't,
I kind of ran him through the ringer at first, because when I first looked at it, I was like, and then I felt bad after. I've thought about you ever since our last facilities committee meeting, because I gave him such a hard time. But after, and again, I'm just reinforcing the messaging part of it and how important that is. I think you're going to field a number of calls, questions. I think Ben's talk about step 1, step 2, step 3 of what your decision matrix is for somebody that falls in those unique circumstances, probably a valid concern.
Jonah, is it, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just want to say there aren't a lot of big changes to those lines.
Right.
Compared to what I've been doing the past few years
Okay.
because of those class sizes.
Okay. John, is there a way we can get this to like all the local real estate offices so they know right away that, okay?
That's our goal, is to get it out. I'm trying to think of the best, I mean, I need to know who to contact, you know, I know all the big ones.
Student broker.
We
Or
talked
if we
about
put
it.
it, if we put it on the Facebook, if we put it on our website, that, but then they have to know to,
Did you say the Facebook?
the website, sorry. If we got it on the website, but we just need to make sure they could get to that.
I just want them to know, because I was meeting with a real estate agent this weekend, very prominent, and had no clue about this, so she's like, that would be very good for us to know, as in like, make sure you guys let us know this, like, they're not gonna go looking for this thinking like, oh, was this the week that Indianola made a change? They're assuming everything's as is until we communicate to them, so they're huge sellers of our district and our community, so I think it would be important to let them know, give them a heads up and extend that this is changing, the communication that this is changing, so.
And you can still call.
Definitely, yeah,
That's how I feel.
yeah,
30 calls a year maybe.
yeah.
On where that sits in the boundaries, so.
Doesn't that get fed to the assessor's page? Don't they capture the
I don't think
school district lines?
Just the district.
Just the district, not the school zones.
And maybe someday Ray or Denise will have like a
She's working on something right now, actually, and then we've
type it
reached,
in and.
We've talked about
yeah,
that.
she's working on something now. We've also reached out to about 4 different companies to see what's there.
I think that'd be great.
Right on our webpage.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you both of you for all your work
I go
on
out
it.
to Beacon, I'll show you.
I know it's not fun.
Maybe not.
All right,
That's something
so we
we
just
want.
need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve recommended change changes.
Motion made by Ben,
Second.
seconded by Tim. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is the return to learn plan.
Yep. And I can talk about that real quick. That's just something we have to bring up every 6 months during this process. Nothing's changed since we talked about it in January at all. And if anything does come, it'll more than likely come down from the state, and we'll have to make the change at that time.
We just need a motion.
Oh, that's a motion.
Any motion?
I'll motion that we
Motion.
approve the.
Motion made by Sue,
Second?
seconded by Donna. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is the appointment of Iowa Code 102 investigators.
With the change.
Update, yeah. The update basically brings the building principals into, as the level 1 investigators, and then Ted would be the alternate. And Warren County would be the level 2.
I assume they all have the proper training and certification to be a level 1.
I have, so if the building principals can't, I can be that alternate.
Motion made by Tim.
Recommend approval of building principals as level 1 investigators, Superintendent Ted Inns as the alternate level 1 investigator, and Warren County Sheriff's Office as level 2 investigator.
Seconded by Matt. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is the board curriculum committee meeting report.
5 weeks ago.
5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Can you guys just read it because it's there?
This is about learning and retention.
Right. It's about memory.
Yeah, basically, we just talked about the professional development model that the district has, and I mean, it's all written there for you. We don't need to read it to you.
Sure.
For any reason that I can possibly think of. And then we will also review the process for the School Improvement Advisory Committee to assist with the improvement of parent and family engagement to positively impact student behavior. And this is just a further study, so that was basically our discussion.
Their last meeting was held, or did they have SIAC? Did they?
They did it virtually.
The SIAC meeting was canceled.
It was canceled.
Yeah,
Okay.
because we're moving forward with the engagement piece, and we
Okay.
wanted to have more information on that.
Okay. Is there one more
Yes.
left this year?
We have curriculum this.
March.
Okay.
Yeah, we met last Thursday, looked at some really good books that are going into different grade levels as options for the kids to read about. So well done for the teachers that picked those books. It is an action item that we have to approve that these books go. So do any other board members have questions about those books before we make a motion?
We'll go to that.
That's the
We'll go
next
that.
one. Oh, we go to that,
next.
okay.
Yeah, just go ahead and finish that section. Should
And then we
soon
just
then-
talked a lot about what the work-based learning looked like, the 6 different technical education areas, and kind of what is required by the state and what does the Indianola's process look like as we talk about the 6 core areas and work-based training and how we can continue to move forward and make sure that we are, staying on top of all the different programs we offer. And when we talk about communication and stuff to the school district too, we really do offer a lot of really neat work-based experiences and some of those things that I don't think a lot of people know about. So just continue to make sure that we are being open to more opportunities for our students that fall under the categories of work-based training.
Thank you. Any questions for Donna or Sue or Annette?
Ryan.
Oh, Ryan or Ryan.
All right.
Nope. All right. Next, we'll move on to the English Language Arts book selections. Those are the 4 books listed there, and we just need a motion to approve those.
I so move we approve the Knox selection.
Motion made by Donna, seconded by Ryan. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is the board HR committee meeting report.
All right. We talked about our open HR position and some cabinet level positions, and basically currently just sharing duties, talking with Ted, confident that we can get through without any interruption or any hiccups right now, but definitely looking at more permanent solutions moving forward with some of those positions. Collective bargaining started this month. I guess I haven't even been paying attention. Have you guys done your second go round? No?
No, it's next Tuesday.
So, so that's good. I don't know who it was. It showed up on my Twitter. Somebody it must have been somebody with, I don't know, they talked about how it was a really good process and more schools should model Indianola. I can't remember where I saw it, so it was free advertising for whatever happened in there. I don't know. It showed up, but anyway, remote work for teachers on snow days, that was brought to the attention of Ted, and we kind of discussed it, and we've discussed also different training mechanisms, like creating a queue of training modules or things that needed to be taken care of, and perhaps like on a snow day, instead of the teachers losing that day, they could go into their self-guided training queue and take advantage of that day at home, going through some of the training things that we've identified as being important. So that was up for discussion. And then also talked about the communications director position. Just kind of in the early stages of that, but like Tim hammers home the messaging part. We talked a lot about how that could be very vital as we move forward, especially with some of the initiatives we have going. So that's about it.
Anybody have any questions for the HR committee? Okay. Move on to the board technology committee meeting report.
Go ahead, Mac. It was good. It was informative.
It was good. I'm gonna slide down here to the notes and go in order. So, high level, we talked about a lot of cybersecurity and things that we can continue to do well with and things that we can work on. Ways that we can interact with the staff on, making sure that they are following appropriate policies and procedures with cybersecurity. And really fine-tuning their ability to know when an email is real and when it's not real.
You're not going to share your story?
No, not today.
Okay.
Somebody get hooked.
Didn't get hooked. It's close. Ray and his team are really doing good work on fine-tuning all of the cybersecurity stuff that needs to be fine-tuned to keep the district in a really good spot. So, with that being said, preemptively, the tech committee is probably going to come with Ray to the full board here in the future and ask for probably a substantial amount of money for some needed updates and upgrades to cybersecurity stuff. So, if you want to go any further.
No, I think just if we want to discuss that as a full board and closed session is probably a good idea. And look at that report that we had. It shows our strengths and where we need some improvement as well. So.
It would be in parallel with what we did with the security plans. It would be the same vein of what you would do.
Whatever you think is appropriate, just let us know.
We
I'm not
listened again, too, just kind of that Ray's team and just their workload. And they just work very hard behind the scenes all day long. So I appreciate everything that your team does. It's small and mighty. But you did a really nice job, and you did a lot of work to present what you did, so thank you.
Appreciate that.
Any questions for the IT committee? Okay. We'll move on to the 2023-2024 budget development process where property tax valuations are.
Exciting stuff, right? Well, when we received our valuations this year, it was like, well, this is good. This is following along the track that we'd like it to fall. And then this legislature has said that they're working on a correction that will ultimately lower our valuation. When we lower the valuation, it will increase our taxes, is what will happen. So right now, everything is so preliminary, but in order to get us to at least see where we're at right now, it was, we were at, 3.7%. That was awesome. They think that from our meeting, our work session meeting, they think that it's going to be more like between 1 and 1.5%, which kind of derails our financing plan for our high school budget as we're trying to work through that. I mean, still things are still moving, nothing's solidified yet. So this is more informational. I think hopefully we'll be able to come back in March with a new number because they're working. It's been through one house. I haven't heard if it's gotten through the second house. I hadn't, if anybody else has. So that's more to come kind of discussion. Then the next piece is the tax rates. I'm just going to move on if that's okay. One of the things that we look at is the management fund because it's one of the pieces that we can shift and move besides some of our cash reserve funds. And that's general fund only. So if you look at the second page of the next page, right? This is the management historical, from 14-15 till now and what we're looking at. With the current valuation, it would be $1.66 in extra cost if we look at that dollar amount versus, last year it was $1.79. Again, we don't know until we get that final valuation update what that will look like. But if I plug that number in and look at a preliminary tax certification, if you go back up, right, sorry, you can see the preliminary by fund. The general fund would be $10.40, management's $1.66, PEPAL, Pearl, and debt service. Debt service, again, maxing that out at $405, gets us to $17.92. Last year, we were at $17.95, just under $17.96. So we're close to the same right now with this figure. I'm really, and the other piece that's not in there is our income tax for last year, for 2021. We'll get that probably March 1st. That's another piece to the puzzle. Once we have that in, this could shift a little bit. That shouldn't change a ton. I'm more concerned about the tax valuation piece, where that's going to end up. So
we have to wait for the passage of that bill.
And again, we're hoping that happens sooner rather than later.
So was there an error in the system?
That's what I think it was in the Legislative Services Bureau is the one that brought it back to the committee, or it started out in committee, and then I'm not sure how the process went. So yeah, we're not the only ones that this is
statewide.
Yeah, so.
In the city and county, or it's back in the city and county as well.
All three, okay.
So it's kind of a lot of anxious moments trying to get this done because we will then, this is kind of what I'm thinking it'll be, and then in March, we will then, have to set our budget for publishing because then the timing hits, we have to do it by the 15th of April. Our regular meeting, I believe, is the 11th, so we have to have between 10 and 20 days, which means we have one date really that works for us to publish. So hopefully all that stuff falls into place by the meeting of the 21st. So having a little bit later board meeting might help us in getting this all complete, I hope.
Jonah, on page 60, and I think we all know that the legislature passed the 3% supplemental aid, but what does that is not for our district because of,
Right, we were 1 point, and I told you, I don't have that in front of me right now.
Um,
It's more like 1.38% because of our decline in enrollment. So it was,
so I just want you guys to be aware of that, like,
3% looks good, and it's statewide.
that's not for us.
It's not for us, yeah.
Because of what happened.
But the small good thing there is that we aren't on the budget guarantee. Budget guarantee puts you in, you get 1% 1 year, and then after that, if you go negative a second year, you go real time or real money, and it's a negative if we go more than one, so. I'll give you that. I apologize, I didn't bring that with me.
1.87.
1.87.
1.87.
Okay.
So we'll be at 1.87 for any increase in the budget, for state supplemental aid, excuse
For
me.
state, that's the
From
state
state aid.
piece, yeah. So
Instead of 3.
valuation, local is our valuation that addresses our property tax. State is the other piece, but that is obviously partly our our taxes as well, so. Any questions on any of that? It's more just information.
Oops, I clicked off my agenda here, 1 second. Next is the, I don't think so, it's just informational, correct?
Yeah, nothing
On those
to
two
add.
pieces. Next is the monthly financials, though, and we will need on that.
Monthly financials, so you'll see we added a budget figure, or a fund budget for capital projects, which would be our high school. So remember, we did we got 10 million of bond money in December 28. So we got under the wire. And so that shows what we have right now. So that will be going on. So obviously, when you compare to last year, that'll be a blank slate for a year. And then you're gonna have it moving, both of them, and that's gonna be wonky, because it just depends on what's happening with the budget, or between the bonds and then what's being spent, so, just FYI. So, any questions? I won't belabor you guys on any of this. We still are waiting since, let's see, May of last year for about 1.6 million from the federal government for the refresh on the computers for both elementary and high school. We've cash flowed them this long, I don't think we can ask for interest from them, but we're just going to get the money sometime. So again, when you look at, if you get to our cash flow graph, you see that we're lower, but if we had that 5 million, we'd be better than we have been. So that's in the back of my head about every day. I always ask Ray, what's going on with our money here? We haven't got it yet.
Do they give updates or not?
We should be getting half of it now, right?
Part of it, 475,000, we keep thinking we're gonna get, and I want them to get the other part, so, because if it takes this long, I'd like to get it before.
We had a little
the fiscal
issue
year.
getting the first part of it, so filed for the second.
Bridge, the discussion we had earlier as a motivator for these.
See what I can do. It's just, it's
I do.
federal government.
All right, any questions on the monthly financials? No, we'll just need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the monthly financial reports for December 2022.
Motion made by Tim,
Second it.
seconded by Donna. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is the Board Finance Committee meeting report.
So again, this is old news. The first one says 2.5, but that was a month ago.
Sorry, John, I'm lost, so go ahead. if you
Page
want.
68.
There we go.
Yeah. Back a month ago, the governor had recommended 2.5 in her state of the state. We didn't have anything more, so that's what would have been, it would have been 300, oh, see, I was thinking 1.38 was the 2.5. So it'd be a little bit more than that for now.
Then we also talked about collective bargaining, that information was shared. Post-employment health savings account, something as a new benefit that we could offer to our employees, and they're just looking into that for further study there. And then the PEPAL and SAVE budgets, we just, of course, went over those like we usually do every month there. We did meet with Piper Sandler already, Travis and other gentleman
Garrett.
we brought in. Garrett, yep, Garrett. And met with them and to just help us understand the ramifications of the valuation changing and how that impacts the high school project. As you guys all know. I think everyone was there. No. We were all here. I think.
Mac and Ben weren't here.
Mac and Ben, okay. All right. And then there's some graphics there that Ted and Jonna had provided us in regards to the collective bargaining process, the timeline for that as well. Any questions on the Board Finance Committee meeting report? Okay. Next is the Board Facilities Committee meeting report. Yes, we met with Ken Kraus from Eagle Point Solar, and he presented
Options
what?
for this building.
He presented some. What's so funny? Come on, let's have a lighthearted.
I heard it was very thorough.
It was very thorough. Yes. He presented some great options for us. However, it could be somewhat difficult. We have to like really think this through and like how it, if it's, I don't know.
Feasible.
If it's feasible, yeah. But yeah, there's also some hangups there right now with us being in Indianola and with IMU. With us belonging to that utility, we have to play by their rules, and their rules are such that they might not be as, the benefits might not be as favorable to us if we were like Mid-America or Alliant Energy. So I contacted IMU and the general manager there and talked to him a little bit about that. And he did say he would, if we look down this road, he would be willing to approach the board of IMU and talk to them further about a discussion with our board on maybe how we could come to an agreement on that.
I was about to say, the IMU board is a very good group of people.
Yeah.
Very good group of people who.
They are.
They
Yeah.
just changed their entire
Yeah.
policy, so
Yeah,
they could receive money from an organization to help our community pay utility bills.
Yeah.
And they wrote a contract, they complete, so if that's the road you choose to go down, involve that board, they're good
Yep.
people.
Yeah, that's
And they
exactly
wanna do
right.
what's right for this community.
that's what he said, and they're just, I just like, if there are some savings out there, I wanna get it all and not just lose those savings
Yeah.
because of certain policies in place, so I would like to see all of those come our way, so that would be, go ahead.
Are you planning to present to them kind of that information that he provided us in that presentation and say, hey, could you come in on this?
He kind of said that we could, if that was something that we wanted to sit down and talk our two organizations together. I think it would be good if we want to go down this road, you know, that's probably the determining factor right there, is like, do we really want to go down this road? I mean, I think it's a good opportunity for our district to, you know, look at the environmental ramifications, to look at what it does to our learning environment for kids to be able to work with and see those devices, that equipment, and then also just for savings, you know, future savings in the district. But I would like to see if we could somehow have a meeting, you know, and see what their what they're able to do, if they're even able to do anything, you know, but he said a conversation was totally appropriate, he said, so that's really good.
I mean, I personally, I thought that the way the information was presented was that this building right here, even if there was nothing beyond that, it would make sense if there were adjustments.
Right.
So if the next step is to meet with those individuals and have that dialogue, I'd advocate that we do that next step personally.
Yeah, I think so too.
Conversations are never bad to have.
Yep.
And they're, like I said, they are willing to write new policies and again, this is a new venture for everybody. And so you never
Right.
know what brings that.
Right.
I would share with y'all that, if you don't mind, Rob, one of the things that came out of it is that if you have on many of our larger facilities, the information or the data, the way that it's structured doesn't necessarily make sense. So what we may have looked at as being a broader project doesn't necessarily apply to all of the facilities that we have. So I know those of you that weren't there and didn't hear that presentation, kind of managing expectations, but if the numbers were right, it has the potential to work on a building like this.
Cool, so maybe we can work towards getting a meeting scheduled with.
Talk and see if you want leadership first and then full
That'd be
board,
fine.
or?
Yeah, that'd be fine, if you guys wanna do that. And then Mr. Schwartz came and presented about the elementary school walking zone boundaries, and that passed already, so. And then the elementary science rooms, an unexpected expense, I believe, but we're able to take care of it.
Yeah, and actually, you know, we're looking at it again to see if you know, this becomes more of a not fixed furniture versus more movable furniture, which would make that number go down.
Okay.
So we're not completely set on that number. Again, having a second bid would help, but probably the focus of what the actual needs are would be.
Some of that was for water.
Water, but some of it, I think originally they talked about doing cabinetry, and cabinetry won't work with the big tubs that they have. It would not, I don't think it would fit. So
Maybe shelving.
maybe shelving, that makes, and that's much cheaper
Shelving's
than.
a lot cheaper.
It's flexible then, so if you need to use that room for something in the future, you can just wheel it and move it, so.
So that's not that, and so that's what we talked about there, but I do believe it might come in less than that. I'm hoping.
Cool, good, that's good to hear. But great project, and we're committed to the continuation of our science curriculum, so. Next was the high school project update with Envision. Did we do this during the facilities meeting?
We just talked about very briefly at the end.
Oh, I-
Yeah, it was, yeah,
Okay.
that they looked at different options and then
That next meeting is with you guys is tomorrow?
Wednesday.
Next Wednesday?
We have one tomorrow morning, but the big group is next Wednesday.
Okay. The one tomorrow morning, that'll be just you, Bernie, and Ted?
Yep.
The three of you, okay, good. All right, any questions on the facility committee meeting? Okay, next is the board policies committee meeting report.
So, yeah, mandate this review, we just do the 6053 and the following documents from the structure regarding the materials and considerations. So, I'll just kind of highlight a couple of points just to explain maybe the thought process behind some of the changes. In regards to the students, our thought wasn't malicious against the student, or we don't think the students know anything, or anything from that perspective, but more of if we're having a material that's in question because of content, then why do we want students, reading the material that maybe end up being revoked or removed? That was the kind of the main setting behind that is as we're moving forward, the material is becoming more controversial and questionable, challenged. So just removing students from that arena for that reason, not any malintent against the students. Secondly, opening up those spots more to the community, that was the bigger purpose, was intending for the community to have more of a voice or footprint on the material being worked on. So a better representation from the community itself was the design between that split between students and more community members. So as far as students or the community members that are deciding on whether or not something's literary rich or unrich wasn't really, and isn't really, I think, the purpose behind reconsideration as much as the content of the material. And so, again, having fewer licensed or licensed representation in the community, that's why that wasn't in concern, because, again, it's not the literary richness or not as much as the content, because that kind of thing can be taught out of literary value or worth can be found in hundreds and hundreds of materials. So that wasn't the main focus of the changes here. So I don't know if that helps or if that.
Well, the Iowa Association of School Boards, this is a state, the policy that we have is a state policy. Everyone is doing it. This is what the policy for the state is. Why we would change ours and basically slap in the face the teachers in the school district that are recommending this literature, that have read it, vetted it, and know it. And the students, no one's forcing them to be on the committee. They don't have to be on the committee. They have the right to say no. And their parents have the right to say no. If the parents and the student think it's possible and a good thing to try and do, I say do it. I have a granddaughter that's a sophomore that's read the Iliad and the Odyssey and every single one of those books last summer. And she would be thrilled if someone asked her to read a book and vet it. So to say that this is pressure on kids or and I've talked to the members of the committee and the kids were fabulous, so I don't quite understand.
I don't think there's disagreement that the kids are fantastic. I think the board can collaboratively say, we have fantastic students. The question is, with the climate that we are in and the number of questionable materials that come to us and the content that's in them, when one of our priorities is mental health, I have a book, Donna, that I'm happy to read aloud that talks about a teacher having a sexual relationship in a classroom with a student.
Well, I can bring the Bible in and read out of the Bible, all the porn that's in the Bible, so
And
you
that's
know what,
fine.
we can go down that route too.
What I'm saying is it appropriate? And if mental health is one of our priorities, are we really wanting to say, let's put our students that are not adults,
Some of them are 18.
and that's fine, but your sophomore granddaughter's not. And if she decided when she turned 18 that caused her PTSD and mental health anguish, does that put us in a spot? I'm just asking.
Yeah, no.
Because
well,
as a
her
parent,
mom is
I don't
her mom
think-
is a counselor, so I'm pretty sure we're not going to worry about that. But, You know what, you're not giving any credit to these kids at all, and you're not giving credit to all the things they see on the internet, what their friends see, what their parents' friends see, what,
I don't care
we
what they
can't
see on the
censor
internet
that.
when it's not in the building. Some of the content that's in our libraries is not appropriate for our students.
They don't have to read it.
But we don't have to provide it.
You know, no one, this is not about anything except trying to censor what kids are reading.
There is no censorship. These
Yes,
books
there
are
is.
available at the public library. If the parents would like them to go to the public library and check them out, that's fine. It is not the school district's responsibility to have inappropriate material available for students, period.
I'm not saying that it is, but you know what, just because somebody brings you a page out of a book or a statement out of a book, that doesn't mean it's pornography. The intent of the book was not to write pornography. There might be some things that make people uncomfortable. I'm not saying there's not.
Would you say that the books that were brought to us at our previous meeting that had images in them, would you classify that as pornography? Because I would, based on state code.
I don't know. I don't know what the content was. I don't know what the context of the picture was. I would, you know, and I would much rather have a kid discuss it with a teacher in a group with a bunch of adults and have some adult input than have them read it on their own and not have anyone have any.
But that's not the
present
school
any
district's
context with them.
responsibility, that's the parents' responsibility.
But you know what? Well, you know, it's interesting that the parents, these same parents came and didn't want their kids to wear a mask, but now we're gonna tell, and so we said, have a religious exemption, have a medical exemption. Great. And you know what? The parents that want this stuff available don't want us telling their kids what they can and can't read.
And we're not telling them that they can't. If they would
Well,
like to go to the
you are,
public
when
library
you're
and
trying to
get
ban
that.
kids from this committee, when no one, when people in the state
There's-
aren't doing this, and the Iowa Association of
we're
School
not-
Boards and attorneys vetted this, why we change it, why Indianola is all of a sudden the worst community in the district.
I'm
I
gonna
don't know.
jump in here really quick. Anybody who's paid attention to me knows that I like to stand in the middle, and I'm feeling increasingly more and more lonely every day. I think part of the problem with our climate is we don't talk to each other and try to understand each other. We try to talk at people, and that's a huge problem we have in a lot of facets of this world. You know, I guess in my opinion, this came from left field. We passed this last year. I've heard zero complaints about it. I think it was a fair process. We've heard from several people involved in it that it was a good process. I'm not aware of any students being forced to be on this. And, you know, I think what it does is it provides equal representation and an equal voice to everyone who has a seat at the table. And sometimes that's how we come to our best solutions, is when we listen to everyone, just not our own echo chamber. And I was shocked to kind of see it. I thought it was working. And I'll ask Ted, because I'll defer. Did you think our process was fair and working?
I don't know enough about it because I wasn't here. So we've always told people if there's a concern with the book, that they follow the process in place. And I've been reached out twice, and that individual has not followed through on filling out the proper paperwork to move forward.
I thought when we talked about it last, you know, we had developed a process for it. We had developed some representation that brought some different voices to the table.
But we didn't change anything last time at all.
Right. And
It was, the last time this was revised was November.
I think we talk about, you know, once again, when we sometimes get wrapped up in our own world is, we talk about mental health, and we think of it in terms of our own, in the grand scheme of things, little world. But, you know, through my work, I've had I guess you could call it misfortune of sitting across from the table of a child who is being sexually abused at home and doesn't have an outlet, or somebody who's witnessing, you know, unimaginable things at their home, they don't have anybody to go to, and maybe a book that someone else might disagree with is what they need to save their life, or to make them feel like they're not alone. And I think we're all consumed in what our own stance is, feel free to join me in the middle. I'm really lonely, but I feel like you can get a much better view of the world from there than when you're on one edge or the other. And I just think we have a good process in place. We've heard from people who said the process was good. We create the culture.
We've heard from other people that the process was not good.
Well, I haven't. So I guess what I'm saying is before we move forward with this, I would like to hear from more people. I think we're creating this culture. We just need to learn to have respect and dignity for everyone and understand that not everyone is in the same position we are. And I asked Art, when we talked about this last time, how many people checked out this book? 2 people. How many kids go to our high school, Ted?
A lot.
2 people.
11,000.
This book was checked out twice, and that's what we're consuming our time with. It's no different than a city building a business that I firmly disagree with. I don't have to go in it. Drive by it every day. Might benefit someone else. It's the same way I view these books. I can't relate to it because I've never felt those struggles. I've never been in that situation. But I've talked to people who have, and sometimes that's their only outlet. And I think we need to consider that, and I think we need to just be considerate of everyone. We make decisions on the school board for what is best for everyone. It's just, that's how society works. At my dinner table, I can have certain rules. We can climb on the table and throw food at each other if that's what flies in my house. But when I go out to eat, I got to operate under a certain set of decorum and respectability and responsibility. And that's what happens when you bring a community together, and community's in our name, and that's who we serve. And we got to wake up and realize this isn't a cookie cutter process that we serve. We serve a ton of different kids from a ton of different backgrounds, from a ton of different experiences, and we need to realize that. So I would suggest that before we do anything with this, we get some more information and talk with each other, not at each other, and do what is best for our kids.
The committee was brought this policy in December and reviewed it with the changes from IASB. The only thing that the committee has suggested change outside of what IASB submitted was how the committee is made up, and that there's no designee to the superintendent on appointing the positions. So if the only disagreement is that the students aren't on the committee, I would be very curious to hear from the board what other issues, other than the fact that there isn't student representation, the board might have.
We've heard from people who said the process works. I think it was you yourself who brought up having student representation for the school board.
And we proved that, and where are they at?
Well, they're not here, but they were on that committee. So if it's good enough for the school board to hear their voice, it's good enough for that committee to hear their voice.
I don't disagree. The only piece that I ask you, Ben, is where do we draw the line on when is it appropriate for them to be involved? We don't invite them into meetings about how we spend money. We don't invite them into meetings about employee conduct. I truly want feedback from the board. Ryan and I have a lot of hours put into this to try to make this policy right for the community. Not the cookie cutter IASB policy that was sent down. There are a lot of people in this community that were not happy with the policy the way that it was and the way that it worked. I understand that there were 3 people that came tonight and said that it did work for them, and that's great. I'm glad it worked for them. It hasn't worked for everybody in the past.
So let me ask a question. It appears that the largest contention is the absence of students. So in the event, and I understand your reasons, I don't understand, I cannot relate as a parent that would let my child be in a position to review some of the materials that have been passed along this boardroom. I cannot imagine myself agreeing to let my kids do that. But I'm not the parent of every kid in Indianola. And so my question is everything that stands as you have it here, is the redaction of that line, is that too far? I mean, as presented, everything else that's on here, is that one sentence, number 5, 2 high school students selected with parent guardian permission by the high school principal? Is that the only thing that we're really?
We're hung up on.
Yes, sir.
That's my question.
Okay, so nothing else changed in this? That's the only really,
Well, he's got some.
the only Indianola changes?
There's just other things in there that we wordsmith now, but, I mean, really, that's the,
Everything else was the revised from IASB.
I guess let me ask it this way, take aside the community members on their edge of the circle who are not happy with this. Did any student who was on this committee come to anybody on this policy and said, I can't do it, stop making me be there?
Well, we've only done it one time.
But did
No,
any
they've done
student
it 3
express
times.
did any student
3
express
times.
concern being on this policy?
I can tell you the 3 books I reviewed because I read them all.
But did we have students on all
Yep.
3?
All 3.
I think maybe an important part of this conversation is that these students are probably being asked by teachers or our
By the
school
counselors,
counselors.
that's by the
And
counselors.
so I'm making a complete guess that the people that they're probably asking, these kids have a critical thinking ability. They have the ability to be able to read a book, maybe in a way where they can bring in their perspective. You guys all know my background, and I support the underserved, everything all day long, and mental health. But I do think students have the right to have a voice in a school system. And in this situation, I would trust that our staff is putting and asking the correct students to sit on the board. I would hope that we would not ask a student that has trauma and then has asked to review a book that involves trauma.
So just out of curiosity, Sue, what's the statistic on students that have trauma that have told someone else about their trauma?
I don't have that statistic.
So how are we supposed to know?
Well,
I think we're putting
that's
ourselves.
that's what all our mental health training is supposed to be. That's what MVP is. That's what PBIS is. That's what, I mean, every step is. That's what all this is. And this too falls into another category. If we as a school support our kids and our staff the exact way we're supposed to through the tier 1, through tier 2, tier 3, social emotional health, then I think that the right students in the right situation could give very valuable feedback.
And if that is truly what the board feels, my recommendation would be that we have our attorneys draw up a very solid release form that releases us from all liability. Because as soon as a book gets removed for whatever reason, and a student sees an opportunity to come back against the district and make a quick buck, it's back on us.
Well, these policies were vetted by lawyers. This was all vetted by lawyers, right?
And obviously, if these kids are probably being asked to do this, it says that parental approval will be parental or guardian permission. That's all
My feelings as presented, I don't have a problem with the changes that you've made to the document. The only voices that have come out of all of this are whether or not students should be represented on this committee. That is the only thing that I see as a contentious issue. I don't have any problems with the work that you've done on this document. I think it maintains the integrity of IASB's document, and I don't have problems with it as presented. The only thing that I think that we as a board are hung up on is line 5, 2 high school students selected with parent/guardian permission by the high school principal. If that was redacted, it makes 9 people on the committee. Well, up to 4 members, you would have to make sure that you have a number that throws an odd number, but you all know that. But it lends itself to a committee of 9 or less individuals.
So if we changed it tonight and it said may include up to 9 members and we added 2 students with an appropriate release that our attorneys have vetted, would the board support that?
I would support that.
I think that's how it's been. There was no indication that it was broken. I think we leave 2 students on there.
Donna?
A recommendation for temporary removal will require, it said 2/3, simple majority vote of the committee. Why did you change the 2/3?
Because 2/3 of 7 would be the same as 1/2 plus 1.
That makes sense.
Just wordsmithing it so that the fractions were easier to understand.
Well, and because you don't know the number of people on the committee. So
And the reason that we
ebb and
changed it
flow,
from.
so-
the
I just
reason
didn't
that
know
we-
why it was changed. I mean, when they wrote this, they had 2/3. That's what they wrote of 7, so I guess I just didn't understand it, why we would change it when it was written that way.
The other reason that we changed it from shall to may would be in an event that we have a committee that's created and there is an issue with scheduling, and we're not trying to schedule 7 people for a review. So, or for example, if Ted deems that there's a material that's brought to us and a teacher librarian's input is not necessarily needed, we wouldn't necessarily have to have a teacher librarian, or whatever the situation may be. Between the committee and Ted and Jonna, we spent multiple days trying to create a policy that allows someone to come forth with a concern and have it be heard. The other question is, do we realistically need somebody to fill out a 3-page form to make a complaint? Any other time somebody wants to make a complaint about anything in the district, they can write an email or pick up the phone and call.
I just go back to the people that spoke tonight. I go back to the people that spoke tonight, and the major contention that I heard was the fact that we were taking the voice away from students. And so, as presented, I don't have a problem with this document. As a matter of fact, you probably create a situation if you have 9 people, where if 5 people out of the 4 say something should happen, then it's probably not, I don't know if that can't do math right now. Is that more than 2/3 or less than 2/3? I don't know. Point being, I don't have a problem with the document as presented with the redaction of the 2 high school students selected with parental and permission by the high school principal.
And that was just one of the policies. I don't know if you guys want us to go through the FMLA paperwork that was
Oh,
updated.
no, I'm just talking about this one.
Yeah, no, I'm just from a committee report.
So if we put line 5 back in with assigned parental permission, then for those under 18, if they're the age of majority, then they don't need a parental permission, I guess, but for those under 18 who haven't reached 18 with assigned parental permission, would that?
I would make a
would that
motion for that.
be okay? Ryan? Mac?
I will say yes, with the understanding that I still don't think it's morally right to have students involved in questionable material, but for the betterment of the policy, I would say yes.
So, add line 5 back and make sure it is written parental or guardian permission for those under the age of 18. Then I would need a motion.
Recommend that we, go ahead.
Do you want to finish the rest of the policies and do it all at once, or do you
Oh,
want to balance it
yeah.
out?
Let's,
This is all
just like
first
normal.
reading anyway, isn't it?
This is just first reading, yeah. So, yeah, go ahead and finish the rest of the policy. Sorry about that.
Okay, so 409, let me go back to it here, I apologize. 409.3E1 is the FMLA policy. We didn't make any wordsmithing changes to that. That was pretty standard from IASB. Both Jonna and Shelley are the ones that work pretty closely with that. Obviously, we talked about the 605.3, and then the E and the Rs for that, just had the additional wordsmithing that went through. R1, the 605.3 R1, does go into a little bit more detail. That was not anything outside of IASB's 2022-2023 update to add about school employees receiving complaints and the timeline. There was one spot where I think we updated it. Jonna helped me out on the 30.
On which one?
When we moved it from 30 days to 45 days, it's on page 105. It doesn't look like it's actually updated in there. Originally on page 105, Ryan and I suggested that we switch letter number 8 to 45 days, just so that we don't get in an off cycle with switching to one calendar per month. So that we don't have to have a special meeting to be in compliance with this policy. So I would actually ask that we redact 30 and put 45 in there.
Is that one?
I think that was the only other change that we made outside of the original policy. So just those two, the FMLA and then the.
Change.
I know that's a lot of reading, you guys. Thank you for serving on the policy committee.
Did it for 2 years.
So this is first reading.
Yep.
Motion to, with the changes mentioned. Motion made by Ryan.
Second.
Seconded by Tim. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 1 second.
What time's that meeting on next Wednesday, 22nd for the high school? What time is it?
What's that?
What time is that meeting?
Oh, for the high school, is it 3:30?
3:30.
3:30.
In
We're at,
in the high school.
In the high school PD room.
Yeah, straight, as you walk in those front doors, straight across. Next is the board calendar. Any changes?
Just real quick,
Yeah.
depending upon the weather, we're supposed to have an HR meeting on Thursday. I will be in contact with you if it needs to be postponed or canceled if the weather is just too bad.
Are these people coming in Thursday too?
They're coming on Wednesday, they're coming tomorrow.
And then they leave?
And, well, if the weather's gonna be too bad, they're gonna take off, and
Okay.
they're gonna meet with the teaching and learning department at another time then, because they're
Okay.
supposed to meet with them on Thursday.
Okay, excellent.
We wear flip-flops with 6 inches of snow.
you guys are weird.
Anything for the next board
It's just
agenda?
6 months.
Anything? Anything for the next board agenda, changes, everything looks okay to me.
Are we having any presentations come up lately? I know we're done with the building presentations.
I've talked to the instructional coaches about maybe coming in, and I've also talked to Stacy Werner about talking a little bit about mental health, but I just don't know what their schedule looks like if they could come in.
Okay, I know that I also spoke with Annette too, with the computer crew.
They'll be here in April.
Oh, perfect, thank you.
The next discipline report, can we make sure Officer Hackett is?
Officer Hackett?
Yeah, and if he can just present a little like how things are going in middle school, high school, what, if there's any obstacles, just kind of.
Officer Hackett?
Yeah.
That'd be good, because like in the years past, there's been some confusion on how it's coded, because it's coded through the police department, so that'd be good to just get some clarification.
Do we have a place that we can start writing down ideas for a work session? Like if we have things that we want to
Yeah.
just put on a list, and then when we get it to a point where we think, okay, we've got enough.
We can start a Google Doc and share with everybody. And if people want to, they can write ideas out.
Just make sure they're ideas only and not comments.
Oh, yeah.
Or just send them to Jonna.
You can send them to me and I'll keep that running list.
Then that'll avoid any communication outside of
It's
the
so
board.
hard to even talk to each other about what we're going to talk about.
Better yet, send them to Jonna. She's the catch-all.
Jonna's the steel trap.
Are we good for finance next week, Jonna, or are you?
I think so, yep.
Okay.
Yep, we're good.
And tech?
Wait, finance? Where's finance?
Next Tuesday.
I will not be here.
Next Tuesday.
And we decided on March 21st, correct?
Yep.
Our March board meeting.
Oh, yeah.
When in
Been a
September
long
is
day.
the board meeting? When's the board meeting in September?
The second
Spring
finance.
by then.
I mean, September, sorry, April. I was
I'm
looking
like,
at, I was looking at
really?
September
See
here,
that
sorry.
smoke coming out of her ears
I
there.
was reading from here.
I want to hang out with you if you're that well planned. I
April
love
is,
that. No, no,
April
no.
is-
April 11th,
April 11th.
Good question.
Anything else from anyone?
Next cruise must be.
I was gonna say, she.
We can adjourn, but then we have our negotiations meeting right after that.
We have to go to closed door.
Closed session, but it's not recorded, it's just a negotiation.
Real quick.
Okay. Do we need to do that before we adjourn?
You can adjourn and then.
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion made by Matt to adjourn,
Second.
seconded by Ben. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, we're adjourned.
Good night, all.
When? Right now? Right now?
Yeah.